There is a total of 8 scars on my body. 2 scars are on my face, 3 are on my back, 2 scars on my chest, and the last scar is across the knuckles of my right hand. I never felt comfortable about talking about how I got any of my scars. There has only been one person in the world I decided to tell about my scars until now. That person is my wife. She has asked me several times while we were dating, but I always told her I would just tell her later when I felt more comfortable. I know it bothered her, but I didn't want to scare her away. Today is the day I finally felt brave enough. I decided to tell my wife and then tell you all because I feel like it may contain some important lessons. On Valentine's Day, I brought home a letter that I wrote for her with a story of my scars and a heart-shaped box of chocolate. She went to grab for her gifts, but I told her to meet me in the bedroom. She followed me in, and we sat on our bed. I handed her the letter first. This is what I wrote. Today is Valentine's Day, and I want to let you know that I love you. I'm sorry I have kept this a secret for so long, but please do not be afraid of me after you read this. Ironically, I received the first scar on Valentine's Day. I was 7 years old, and I accidentally broke the TV my father had just bought. He walked up to me and started yelling at me. I tried to tell him it was an accident, but he refused to listen to a word I had to say. He didn't realize it, but he was holding a small pocket knife in his hand while yelling at me. I closed my eyes while I started to cry, but a pain erupted from the middle of my chest. I opened my eyes and started to scream in pain. I blacked out and woke up on my bed. I had 3 stitches in my chest, and my father was sitting next to my bed. He rubbed my shoulder and told me I was fine. When I was 11 years old, I came home from school and my parents were in the middle of an argument. I tried to sneak past them, but as I was walking past the entrance to the kitchen, I felt something hard smash my back. I tried to keep walking, but with each step, I could feel glass pieces digging and ripping into my skin and flesh. I heard a gasp coming from the kitchen before I blacked out once again. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was leaned over to my right side, and my father was standing in the corner of the room. When he saw me wake up, he put a finger up to his mouth and stood there for a couple of hours. I tried to go back to sleep, but I was afraid of what my father would do to me. When I was between the ages of 11 to 14, I had trouble sleeping. I tried to still keep my eyes closed because whenever I opened my eyes, I would see my father standing off in the corner of my room, just staring at me. I was scared for my life. I tried everything to stay asleep, but it was impossible. I hated my dad, and I just wished that he would go away forever. The next couple of years, I tried to avoid my father as much as I could. I did a pretty good job until I was 14 years old. It all started on a Friday. I got off of the bus and walked to my house. When I got close, I saw my father standing in the middle of our lawn. I tried to walk past him, but he jumped in front of me. With a gruff voice, he said, "Don't come in here, just go. We don't have time to deal with you anymore." I tried to run past him and call out for my mom, but my father threw me down on the ground. I looked up at my dad, but he threw some money at me and walked away into the house. I honestly didn't know what to do. My face was bleeding and I didn't want to go anywhere else. I ran to the back of the house and into the shed in our backyard, I stayed there for 2 days. I didn't leave except the few times I would run to the water hose to drink some water. On Sunday, I became desperate. I was hungry, and I wanted to be back in my home and sleep in my room. I didn't care if my dad hit me again. My father answered the door and pointed at my room. I ran upstairs and dove under my covers. A couple of hours later, my father came into my room with a plate of food. I ate every last bit of the food and placed the plate on the side table. I thought about reading a book, but I didn't have the strength to get up from my bed. For a little over an hour, I imagined myself being in a much better family. A family where everyone loved each other and the parents didn't spend the whole time arguing. That is all I ever hoped for, but even at that young age, I knew it was not possible. I don't know when I fell asleep, but I woke up and screamed in pain. My chest felt like it was on fire. I tried to get up, but something pushed me onto my stomach and held my head down. It became hard to breathe, and I started to struggle even harder before I felt something hit the side of my head and the world went blank. When I woke back up again, it was still dark. I looked to my left and right, but didn't see anyone. I slowly rolled onto my back and saw my father standing in the doorway. He had a knife in his hands and kept both of his eyes on me. I started to shout for my mother, but my dad ran up to me and put his hand over my mouth. I settled down and stared at him. When he took his hand off of my mouth, I remained quiet. He still had the knife in his hands, and the last thing I wanted to do was make him angry again. Now you know why I have the 7 scars. The 8th scar came from the day of my graduation. Neither my mother nor my father showed up. I wasn't sad though. I didn't care. I was just glad I was off to college in a couple of months. It was a great day for me. After the graduation, I went with a couple of buddies and went to a party. It was the first party I went to, and the first time I drank alcohol. I didn't drink too much, but I still felt happier than I have ever felt in my whole life. The fun stopped when I got home. The first thing I noticed was the blood all over our white couch in our living room. The next thing I noticed was my father lying face down beside the couch. I walked over to him and saw blood all around his chest and midsection area. I turned him around and saw that he had been shot 3 times in his midsection. I was about to lay him back down when his eyes opened and his lips started moving. Despite the shots he took, he still managed to have the longest conversation I have ever had with him. Save you? What do you mean? Your mom didn't want you. I love her and you. I wanted it to work. You're the one that didn't want me. You didn't care about me. No, please remember. He took his last breath and never moved a muscle. I sat on the ground next to him and tried to think of what he said. Why he would even say anything like that about my mother. And then the memories hit me. My father holding the knife and yelling at me when I was 7. He didn't stab me. My mother bumped into him while he was yelling at me. When I was 11, she was the one that threw the dish at my back. It wasn't an accident. I don't remember what they were arguing about, but he was just watching over me that night so my mother wouldn't come in. He stayed there every night so that my mother wouldn't come in and try to do anything. At 14, he had it. He didn't want to leave my mother. He loved her. He really did. He loved me too, but he just couldn't handle the stress and torture he put himself through. That was the only time he hit me. I heard my mother coming downstairs. She gave me a smile when she saw me and walked towards me with the gun still in her right hand. Before she could do anything, I jumped on top of her and punched her in the stupid face for every single scar, for taking the life of the only parent that loved me, for making me hate my father, and for still being able to smile through it all. I don't know which bone on her face cut through the skin of my knuckles, but I know one thing. It is the only scar I can appreciate. When the cops came, they asked me question after question. I answered all of them honestly. I was not charged. It was all self-defense. That is how I got my 8 scars. I want you to promise me one thing. To still love me the same way you have always loved me. Please don't think of me as an evil person. I love you, and I will always love you. Forever your Valentine, Hae-young. My wife looked at me with eyes full of love, and I knew I didn't mess up by letting her know. I just wanted to share this with you guys, because we tend to forget who cares for us and who is trying to kill us. Please be careful with whom you trust.